The movie opens on a vibrant sun-drenched day in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, with children playing soccer on a beach. Among them is Marcelo, a young boy who discovers a stray puppy. He brings it home to his bustling family, his mother Eunice, father Rubens, and sisters Viroka, Eliana, and Nalu. The family's lively dynamic is immediately apparent, filled with playful banter and affection. Their home is a hub of activity reflecting a comfortable upper-middle-class existence. Rubens, a former congressman, is working on a construction project while Eunice manages the household and their daughter's various activities, including ballet. Life takes a stark turn when news reports begin to dominate their lives. The kidnapping of the Swiss ambassador Giovanni Bucher by the self-proclaimed National Liberation Alliance highlights the growing political instability and the harsh realities of Brazil under a military dictatorship. The family discusses the events with Rubens, a lawyer, explaining the implications of such actions. A military roadblock further underscores the oppressive atmosphere as Viroka recounts a harrowing encounter with aggressive soldiers while taking her friend Helena home. The family relies on Rubens's Brazilian Bar Association (BBA) card as a form of protection in these increasingly dangerous times. The escalating political climate prompts Eunice's sister Dalva and her husband Gaspar to decide to move to London. They urge Rubens and Eunice to join them, particularly for the sake of their children. While initially hesitant, Eunice and Rubens eventually agree to send their eldest daughter Viroka to London with Dalva and Gaspar, believing it will be safer for her. This decision is tinged with sadness and the palpable fear of separation, but also a hope that this phase of political unrest will soon pass. Before Viroka leaves, there's a tender scene where the family gathers, sharing ice cream and exchanging gifts, including a meaningful quote from Eunice to Viroka, a memento of her parents' honeymoon. One evening, while Rubens is having a late-night conversation with Marcelo, a mysterious phone call comes in, hinting at a secret delivery involving numerous envelopes to an office downtown. Rubens dismisses it as work and takes the call in private, fueling a sense of unease. The family receives a letter from Viroka in London, which is read aloud on a reel-to-reel tape recorder. Her cheerful voice describes life in England, the novelty of snow, and her excitement about being in the same city as John Lennon and the Beatles. The letter offers a brief respite from the anxieties of their lives, providing a glimpse of hope and normalcy. The children imagine her new life, oblivious to the deeper concerns their parents harbor. The sense of foreboding intensifies when uniformed men arrive at their home. They identify Rubens as a former congressman and demand he accompany them for a deposition, claiming it's routine. Despite Rubens's calm demeanor and reassurances to his family, the situation is clearly coercive. The men who refuse to identify themselves fully begin to search the house and question the family members. Eunice tries to protect her children, insisting that only she and Rubens are home. She tells her daughters that their father is simply helping these gentlemen and will be back soon, trying to maintain a semblance of normalcy for their sake. The military men occupy their home, effectively putting the family under house arrest. They monitor all phone calls, and Eunice is forced to lie to her friend Dalil, saying Rubens is traveling. The atmosphere in the house becomes suffocating, with the children's innocent questions about their father's whereabouts and the presence of the armed men creating an unbearable tension. Eliana, particularly perceptive, senses the danger, asking why they cannot leave and who these men truly are. Eunice, struggling to hold back her fear, admits that the men took her father and are from the army. She implores her daughters, especially Eliana and Bobbio, not to tell the younger ones the truth. The next morning, the situation escalates further. Eunice is informed that she and Eliana will also be taken for questioning. She instructs her remaining daughters to take care of the younger children and reiterates her hope that they will all be back soon. Eunice and Eliana are blindfolded and driven to an undisclosed location. Inside the detention facility, Eunice is interrogated by a man named Schneider. He reveals a detailed confidential dossier on her and Rubens, indicating that they have been under surveillance. Schneider accuses Rubens of associating with communists and terrorists, despite Eunice's insistence that he was merely an ousted congressman and has not been involved in politics since his return from exile. Eunice demands to see Rubens and Eliana, but her requests are met with evasion and intimidation. Schneider presents Eunice with photos, asking her to identify individuals. She recognizes Rubens and, surprisingly, Martha, her daughter's teacher. Schneider claims Martha was intercepted at the airport and her son provides logistics for subversives in Chile, implying she was a courier for Rubens. Eunice adamantly denies any involvement of Rubens with terrorists or any knowledge of Martha's alleged activities. The interrogation becomes increasingly psychological. Schneider warns Eunice about her attitude and subtly threatens her children's safety. He casually mentions Viroka's well-being in London, a clear attempt to unnerve her. Eunice's distress grows as she is denied access to her daughter. At one point, Eliana is brought into the room seemingly for a brief moment before being taken away again, further traumatizing Eunice. The film ends with Eunice repeatedly demanding to know her daughter's whereabouts, her cries echoing in the cold, unyielding environment of the detention center. The ultimate fate of Rubens remains unknown, and Eunice's desperate pleas for her family highlight the terrifying reality of life under a brutal dictatorship where individuals could vanish without a trace. Eunice, visibly disoriented and still under the influence of the interrogation, is returned home after 5 days. Her children, particularly Eliana, are relieved but also deeply anxious about their father Rubens. The newspapers claim he escaped, a fabrication that Lino, a family friend, dismisses as a lie. Eliana reveals that she has been going to baby's house every day after school, where everyone is trying to find Rubens. Eunice, still fragile, tries to resume a semblance of normal life, sending Eliana to school, though she is clearly struggling. Eunice attends a meeting with friends and allies, including Lino, who are actively working to find Rubens. They express concern that the military denied Rubens's arrest, claiming it had nothing to do with the army. The group discusses strategies, including publishing a photo of the family without the father in international newspapers to draw attention to the case. Eunice reveals a crucial piece of evidence: Rubens's car is parked in an army lot, proving his arrest. Later, Eunice attempts to deliver a change of clothes and medicine for Rubens, who is diabetic, to the military barracks. The officers deny his presence and refuse to acknowledge his transfer, directing her to file a request with the federal police. Lino dismisses this as a futile bureaucratic exercise, informing Eunice that they will pursue a habeas corpus petition. During this encounter, Martha, Eunice's daughter's teacher, arrives and reveals that she saw Rubens at the detention center. She recounts being in the same car as him, their heads covered by hoods, and hearing him say his full name. This confirms Rubens's arrest, but Martha, fearful for her own safety and that of her family, refuses to get further involved, highlighting the pervasive terror of the regime. The emotional toll on the family continues to mount. Rubens's car is returned to their home, further confusing the children. Nalu questions why her father isn't with his bag, and Eliana, feeling the weight of the situation, quits volleyball. The children notice a car with men perpetually parked outside their house watching them. Eunice struggles financially, realizing that Rubens, who handled the household finances, had only paid Z's, their housekeeper, until December. At the bank, she's unable to access funds without Rubens's signature, forcing her to exchange personal dollars and pounds for cash. Meanwhile, Viroka expresses a desire to return home from London, but Eunice, still reeling from the uncertainty, believes it's safer for her to stay. Eunice later confides in Lino about Rubens's secret involvement in helping those targeted by the regime, including delivering letters to families of political prisoners and providing shelter. She explains that they were not involved in armed struggle, and Rubens certainly wasn't. Despite the danger, Eunice clings to the hope that Rubens will be released. The family continues their routine, reading another letter from Viroka detailing her exciting encounters in London, including dancing with Gilberto Gil. The normalcy of the letter contrasts sharply with the grim reality of their lives. One day, Marcelo notices the men watching their house and confronts them, demanding to know about his father. The men remain silent, emphasizing their ominous presence. A new letter arrives from Viroka, revealing that she learned about Eunice and Eliana's arrests from newspapers in London. She expresses her distress and desire to come home, feeling lied to. This causes a heated argument as Eunice struggles to protect her children from the harsh truth. A turning point comes with a habeas corpus ruling. Eunice is released and her lawyer requests a private cell for Rubens, but his whereabouts remain unknown. Martha, despite her earlier reluctance, provides an affidavit confirming she heard Rubens's voice in prison, identifying himself. This vital proof confirms his arrest, giving the family a new avenue to pursue. However, the devastating news follows swiftly. The president's office declares that Rubens died in combat, a blatant lie to cover up his murder. Lino advises Eunice that there's nothing they can do to force a public admission, yet suggesting they continue to demand his release as if they don't know the truth, to avoid further danger to their monitored home and tapped phone. He cautiously discusses the rumors of how bodies were disposed of, buried in forests, dropped into the sea, or in mass graves, acknowledging the regime's efforts to erase all traces of its victims. The family grapples with this devastating news. Marcelo breaks his sister's doll in frustration, and Eunice, despite her grief, tries to maintain a brave face for her children. The weight of Rubens's absence and the financial strain become unbearable. Eunice makes the difficult decision to sell their house, a place filled with so many memories, and move the family to Sao Paulo, where her parents live. The children react with a mix of sadness and anger, particularly Eliana, who doesn't want to leave. They worry what will happen if their father returns and they aren't there. Eunice explains that the house is already rented out to become a restaurant, a stark symbol of their forced displacement. Years later, the adult children reflect on their father's disappearance. Bobbio is traveling for work while Marcelo has become a lawyer, following in his father's footsteps. He is seen preparing for a talk on legal tools to prevent illegal occupation of indigenous lands, continuing his father's legacy of fighting for justice. Eunice, now older, attends a ceremony where she receives Rubens's death certificate, a document that brings a strange sense of relief, formally acknowledging his death after years of uncertainty. In a press conference, Eunice eloquently speaks about the cruelty of forced disappearances, which inflict eternal psychological torture on families. She asserts the government's responsibility to compensate families, clarify and judge all crimes committed during the dictatorship, arguing that impunity allows such atrocities to continue. The family gathers now, including Viroka, who has returned from London. They share a meal, the atmosphere a mix of bittersweet reunion and lingering sadness. The children recall the moment they knew their father wouldn't return. For Marcelo, it was when his mother donated Rubens's clothes. For another, it was seeing their empty house in Rio. The film concludes with a final family photograph taken seriously without smiles, as requested by a newspaper editor, symbolizing their enduring grief and resilience. Text on screen reveals that the Brazilian government eventually admitted Rubens Paiva was murdered in a military barracks in Rio de Janeiro between 1971 and 1974. 5 military officers were charged but never arrested or punished. Eunice Paiva earned a law degree at 50, dedicating her life to human rights, specializing in indigenous rights and becoming a consultant for various international organizations. She died in 2013 at 86 after living with Alzheimer's for years. The film is based on a biography by Marcelo Rubens Paiva, her son. If you enjoy watching this video, then subscribe to Angel Recaps for the latest movies explanation.